Hello. Back on. Share. Any change? No. Settings and habits. Back here. And if you have an idea, check with your neighbor right now. I feel something here. Okay. So let's see, let me think about this. Okay, I think I know the answer. Does anybody have a guess? What do you think? That's a good guess. Anybody else? Yep. 20? Okay, that's another good guess.
I think I overcomplicated. I have 42.
I was thinking 42. That's another good guess. Okay. 36.
1.
1? Sure, why not? Okay, so we threw a lot of things out there. So sometimes when I'm not sure about this, I do one of two things. Can I find a different way to do it to kind of verify it? Or can I just simplify it a little bit? Like maybe 7's too many for my brain today. So I'm going to knock it down to 3 people. So person number 1, person number 2, person number 3, because I'm not a very good artist today. We can distinguish, right? So person number 1 here has to meet that person. So they meet each other, right? They also have to meet that person right there. So they're kind of covered. They met people. And then these two meet. So depending on what you mean by an introduction, right? Like, hey, I'm Gary.
I'm Ashley.
Oh, okay. Was that 1 introduction or 2 introductions? 2? Okay. So some people look at that and say 2. Other people would say, no, if I say I'm Gary, you have to say I'm Ashley. That's just 1 introduction. Okay. So some people would look at this and say the answer is 6 introductions. Other people would say, well, let's simplify it and say it's a handshake. That's what introduced us. Yeah, we said names too. So I could say it's 3 handshakes. So there are 2 different ways, 2 different numerical answers to this based on the way I stated it, based on somebody and how they interpret what an introduction is. Right? Okay. So does that help us verify the answer for 7? Not yet, but it might help you with the way you came up with your number. Does that help you? Anybody say, yeah, my number's probably right based on that example, or do we need more? More, good answer. Yes, thank you, Caleb. Appreciate your help there. So sometimes things to think about. Writing stuff down frees your brain to think about other aspects of what's going on, to make those connections. Did anybody ever ask you something about a movie and you're like, oh, I know the name of that movie, but you just can't quite spit it out? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bang, it pops out. Right? So our brain is processing even when we don't know it based on some things that went on. So the more you write down, the more you free up the brain to do those kind of connections, right? To find those things. So write down, write down, write down. Other ways I could write this down, I could start drawing a bunch of other pictures, like with 4 things in it, with 5 things in it. I'm going to have a bunch of different pictures. How would I then take all of those different pictures and try and put them together? Make a table. Good idea, Tiffany. Excellent job. So we put them together in a table. So I might say, all right, let's change from red to black. We have people versus introductions. And then we have to make a decision as a group right now. At least I would like to make a decision. We want to go with the intros. Gary meets Ashley. Ashley meets Gary, or do we want to go with handshakes here? Who cares? Come on, somebody care.
Maybe the introduction.
Introductions? Okay, let's go with introductions. I like that one too. Introductions is what we're going to do. So for one person, right, unless you're a little nuts, there's nothing going on there. So we're not going to count that. 2 people is where it starts, right? With 2 people, there are 2 introductions, right? I say my name, you say your name. With 3 people, that's okay, it's one day. First day of school. With 3 people, we just discovered there are 6. Yeah. Okay, so then let's just say, then 4th person comes along here. There's 4th person right here, happy flowery person. They need to introduce themselves to the group. So tell me what's going to happen in terms of total or additional introductions. What's this going to turn into? How many people are drawing this picture right now? Excellent. I want to go by and see everyone's picture. Draw quick. Hurry up, friend. Write something down. Fourth person comes in, and they've got to meet that one. So there's another 2, that one, another 2, and that one, there's another 2. So I had 6, I just introduced 6 more. I think there's 12 total introductions here. Four, 12. And then once I start accumulating things in my table, I start to ask myself, like, is there a pattern to get from here to here that's similar from there to there? Or maybe there's a pattern to get from 2 to 2 and 3 to 6 and 4 to 4, like mathematically wise. So I'm looking for patterns in multiple directions. There. Anybody have an insight they want to share about what they see? Well, I see a couple of different patterns there. But it's not fair because I did this before. And here's the thing to realize. Most of the math you see me do, I did it before many times, so you're watching a well-rehearsed play. If you give me a problem I've never done before, guess what's going to happen first? Am I going to get it right or wrong? Say wrong. I'm going to get it wrong. I've been doing math pretty much all my life, and I would say at least half of the math I've done has been wrong. Because it was my first try most of the time. Get it wrong. I'm way up on most people because I've been teaching for a long time. Yeah?
It is number times 1 in line 4.
Oh! 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 3 is 12. Oh my gosh. Okay. So then we can make a prediction. So let's write a different color. Our prediction that 5 times 4 would be 20. Let's draw that and see what happens. Okay, cool. Back to my messy picture here. I need person number 5 to step in. There's person number 5. So they have, what, 4 people to meet? The others all know each other, right? So I can just count by 2s, can't I? So let's see, where are we at? 12. So what's after 12? 14, 16, 18, 20. Oh my gosh, that worked. Okay. So we've tested the theory and it worked for the next number. So it's a good bet that it's going to keep working. Do patterns we see like that always persist? Sometimes we found the wrong pattern and it falls apart after a while. So usually what we want to do next is look at that multiplication, and we want to ask, well, okay, it seems to work for the first 4, but why? Can we have a reason that it works? So let's see. Let's try it on the 7. So I walk into the room. How many people do I have to meet? I have 6 people to meet. So you came into this room not knowing anybody, right? How many people did you have to meet?
6.
Oh, how many people did you have to meet?
6.
Interesting. And you?
6.
We all have something in common. Each of us had 6 people to meet. How many of us are there? 7 different people had 6 people to meet. How many people did we all have to meet? Well, how many introductions is that? Sorry. Maybe what?
42.
7 times 6, right? 7 groups of 6 introductions should be 42, which fits the 7 times 6 pattern. So we now have a reason it's got to work. And if there were 20 people here, how many people would each of those 20 people have to meet? That's a tough sentence. They would have to each have 9, and every one of them is the same. They all have 19 other people to meet. 20 times 19 is going to give us the answer. So often what we try to do is generalize the pattern to a formula. So we're taking a bunch of specific information, we're trying to make it general. That is inductive reasoning, which we'll talk more about later. So let's say there were, let's see, what's a letter we could use in math? What letters are popular in math? X. Well, we beat up X way too much. What else can we use for a letter here? Good idea. P for people. Okay, so the number of people can be P. We're going to take P times what? What's that? I for introductions. Now that's 2 different letters. That makes it worse. We don't want any more letters. What do we have to do to the number of people to get what we multiply by? Subtract 1, right? So we take P times P minus 1. Now there's 2 versions of this formula that come to mind. There's that version, and then there's P times P minus 1. Which is the correct version of this formula? The red one or the black one? The red one, because we have to do the subtraction and then multiply. Whereas here, the order of operations is multiply, then subtract. So this is not the right way to state it. So sometimes we come up with these ideas, and we have to think, okay, how did I do that? Did I subtract then multiply, or multiply then subtract? And that tells you where to put the parentheses. So we were given our number, we take 1 away from it, and then we multiply. So the parentheses help with that. Okay, that's kind of cool. Could we teach a spreadsheet to do that? Maybe. Try that in a minute. Let's go back for a moment. We just solved the introduction problem. What if we were going to change this to a handshake problem instead? Could we modify our formula to solve the handshake problem instead?
You just divide the whole thing by 2.
Yeah, just divide the whole thing by 2. Yeah, so we have a formula for introductions, and now we have a formula for handshakes. So the number of introductions, and often we use letters for variables, but you'll see all the time in elementary school, they just use little boxes or circles. I use the letter P. I could just say introductions is equal to people times people minus 1. Slightly different but related problem is if we count handshakes. And it's almost identical. It's still people times people minus 1. But then we have to cut it in half, divide by 2. So that'd be one way to write it. Another way I could state it, it's half of the number of introductions. So I could also write it that way. And generally, once we start throwing in formulas, algebra, there's usually a whole bunch of different ways it could be written. Some, they all work, but one like physically makes more sense than another. All right, so we'll show you another way to attack this problem. Everybody up. Come to the front of the room, please. And let's all line up. Oops, I'm gonna turn this light off so we don't blind anybody. I think I got it. Okay, so just line up. It's there. No, we can get in the line too. Okay, so we have 7 people lined up, right? So somebody's going to say, all right, it's my turn to like. This would be like the most efficient way to get 7 people to move. Hi, Gary. Gary.
Ashley.
Caleb.
Gary. I'm done, right? What should happen next?
The next person.
Before.
Ready? Ashley.
Caleb.
Okay, pause just a second. Okay, so how many people did I meet?
6.
Okay, how many did you just run through?
I forgot 2.
You already got me though, because I went by first. So ignoring me for a second, how many did you have to go through? 5, right? So steal marker, you get to go in just a second. So I did 6, and then you did 5. Your turn.
Ashley.
You did 4. Now we don't need to count those 2 because I counted me meeting you and you counted, right? So that I'm not going to double count. Your turn.
Caleb.
Ashley.
Caleb.
Vicky.
Caleb.
Chris.
Okay. So then you did 3, right? 2, and then you had 1, and you met everybody. You just get to hang out and let it happen, right? So let's see. Okay, so you guys go back to your seats now. So it's one thing to say, okay, how many are there? It's a whole nother problem to make it happen, right? How do you organize this event to go on? Like, what if there were 30 people in this room? Would it be efficient for you to like randomly walk around and say hello to people? Would you miss some people that way? You definitely miss some people, right? So systems to make work happen are important too. That's a whole nother area of math. We're not really going to go into that. But did all the introductions just happen? So they're all contained in this list. What should we do with that list of numbers? Add them up. Let's add them up, see what we get. Let's see. $21? That's counting handshakes, not introductions. So if we doubled that, we would get the 42. It works, doesn't it? That's kind of cool. If 7 people need to meet, add the numbers 1 through 6. Let's test that for a smaller number. Like when 5 people needed to meet, that top person had 4 people. The next person would have 3, 2, and 1. Let's see, what does that give us? 5 and 5 is 10. And if you double the handshakes to get introductions, that gives us the answer of 20 that we found before, right? So this process seems to work either way. Does that kind of make sense? That process was even hidden in the picture that I drew. So lights, back page. Oh, did I kill it? Oh. There it goes. Back on the page. The picture's getting kind of messy. We'll go with that picture. So let's think handshakes instead of introductions for a minute. So if I had only started with 2 people, there was 1 introduction. A 3rd person walks in, to that 1, I have to add how many? 2 more. Then a 4th person works in that. To that group, I have to add how many more?
3.
Yeah, so we start with 1, then we add 2, then we add 3, and then on the next page, the 5th person walks in, and we had to add a 4. So there's the addition of 1, 2, 3, 4 from the other direction, which is kind of neat. All right, here's what's going to get a little weird, but not too bad. I'm going to give you a little problem to solve. Thinking about the relationship we just found to adding consecutive numbers starting at 1 and the product we had with handshakes divided by 2, or introductions divided by 2 for handshakes. Okay, so think about both of those things that just went on. And somebody is fixated, which we all get fixated on stuff, in adding up a group of numbers. Can we use one of our trick formulas from handshakes or introductions to find a quick way to add the numbers from 1 to 11 without actually adding them all? So think about that for a minute. Think about the handshake formula and the introduction formula we just went through, and see if you can come up with a shortcut for adding those numbers up. So just try something, risk being wrong. I learn way more from being wrong than I do from being right, as long as I realize it. Write something down, make a guess, see if you can test your guess. I have better paper if you want some. So here's a few sheets. And then anybody that wants to graph paper plan, you got paper? Wants graph paper too? Yeah. This will come in handy for another projects. At the very least, just write down a guess. It's better to risk being wrong than to do nothing. Throw a wild number out there. That's my guess. I haven't tested it. I'm pretty sure it's wrong. Okay, so if I come back to the easier example, 1 plus 3 plus 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, that's what happened when there were 5 people, because each person had 4 people to meet. So if I add up those numbers, that'll give me the total number of handshakes. So let's see, what was that? 10. Doubling that is where I got the introductions. So the 20, 4 times 5 is the 20. Did I actually add 5 into this group? No, right? So here I just looked at this and said, oh, let's just take 11 times 10. I like those two numbers. They're at the end. I'm going to multiply them together. Okay. Problem. How many handshakes max are happening? If I think about this as a handshake problem. 11, right? How many people must there be in the room then? There must be 12 people in the room. Yeah. So this would be what I need to add for 12 people. And the shortcut that we found for that was to take the number of people and to multiply that by people minus 1. So 5 times 4. If it's handshakes, I cut it in half. So to add the numbers 1 through 11, I think the answer should be, so I'm not sure about that, 12 times 11 divided by 2. Let's see, 2 goes into 12 6 times. So what do you think, 66? Anybody come up with that when they were playing with this? No? That's okay. Did anybody come up with the wrong number? Besides me? Oh, good. Thank you for helping me out and making me feel better. Yeah.
I came up with 55. So.
Ooh, cool. Okay. So let's look at this a slightly different way. Okay. When I was doing this list of numbers here, I didn't do 4 and 3 is 7 plus. I said, oh, there's a 5 and there's a 5. Right. I kind of find compatible numbers. If I take a similar approach here, like doing the extremes, 1 and 11 is what? 10 and 2? 9 and 3? 12. Oh, there's a whole bunch of 12s up here, right? So how many 12s are there? Well, it turns out there's going to be 11 of them. But then you got to kind of cut that in half. So how many numbers are on the list here? 11, right? Yeah. But when I add 11 and 1, is that one addition or two? That's one addition. Each pair of numbers gives us one addition, right? So that's why I have to kind of cut that in half. So I'm going to fill this out just a little bit more. The thing disappeared. Let's just get a new screen. Okay, so write this down with me. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. Oh, I just made it. Plus 11. And so I was thinking, what can I pair these suckers up? Color. So I said, let's take 1 and 11. Let's take 2 and 10. 3, 8, 4, and 7, and then did I get this right?
Yeah, three should be going to 9.
3 should be good. Ooh, 3 should be going to 9. Thank you. Ooh, something's wrong in the middle. 3 goes to 9. You go to 8. Okay, that's better. 5 goes to 7, and then 6 is just kind of hanging out all on its own. So how many pairs of numbers do I have here? And half. Really? Because half of a pair is 1. Think about the idea of 12 times 11 over 2. How many times does 2 go into 11? Yeah, so that says there are 5.5 pairs of 12 up there. It's kind of cool. Here's a slightly different way to think about it. So that's one thing I'm going to kind of beat to death some days. Many ways to think about problems. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Oops. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, should have picked a slightly smaller list. Most people looking at this would go 1 and 2 is 3, 3 and 6, 3 is 6, 6 and 4 is 10, right? That feels awfully slow progress. So some days I might say, well, let's just start with 11, because 11 plus 10 is 21. That's way more progress. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Is it really better off adding them the other way, or is it just the same amount of work? I get higher numbers right away here, but then I get smaller things to add on at the end. But writing it this way, somebody might notice, well, when you go down, you always get a 12. That's kind of cool. So switching colors, there's a 12 there. If I add down, there's a 12 there. How many 12s do I have here? I have 11 12s. However, didn't I just double count because I repeated the list? So cut it in half. Slightly different way to look at the same math. Okay, so what's special about 11 here? It's the biggest number, right? And what is the smallest number? So that 12 right there, you could say it came from adding the 1 to the 11. The first number plus the last number. What number is right in the middle? 6? Yeah, 1 plus 11 is 12, divide by 2 gives us 6. Doesn't that find the middle term between two numbers, add them up, divide by 2? Yeah. So another way to look at this, it has to do with the idea of average. The average value of this list is 6. Why? Because 6 is right in the middle. Oops, wrong way. So yet another way to think about this. How do you find the average of a group of numbers?
You add them together and subtract.
Okay.
Divide it.
Yeah, adding them together, that's called a sum, right? And then you divide by,
And not.
okay, so let's call that the count. So that's the way we define average, right? You add up all the numbers, you divide by how many there are, sum by the count. We can do a little algebra on this. Suppose I wanted sum to be all alone. How would I get rid of the count? Times it to the average. Yeah, so sum must be equal to average times the count. Right? So this is math. You already knew how to do averages, right? I'm just trying to connect it to something else new here. Does that have anything to do with what we just did right here? Because the 11, isn't that my count? Where's the average in this formula? Yeah, that's a shortcut on the average because the numbers are all equally spaced. So this is a shortcut for the average. And we'll see, this is going to pop up again in 2 other problems that we do. So once you start paying attention, you'd be amazed at the similarities between different kinds of problems. Like, oh, I saw that in this other place. Right? So we're going to try and find those things with some of the problem solving. All right, so let's see. Yeah, it's almost 4 o'clock. So we've done quite a bit of work here. The theme of the whole class is problem solving. Right? I can teach people all kinds of different things, like how to add fractions. I can teach you how to play with decimals. But what we really want to instill in young people in terms of learning is to just play around. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Write stuff down and see what happens, and then try and test it somehow. Okay? So that's kind of like an overall theme for the whole year if you stick with me all year. Strategies that we've learned for problem solving. I've got a few different things that appeared here. New page. Problem solving strategies. I think at least 4 different common strategies popped up in our work together that we can apply to a lot of different kinds of problems. Anybody want to take a stab at something we did that you think is a good thing to try all the time?
Trying to find patterns.
Yeah, looking for patterns. That's excellent. Okay. Someone else? How do we look for patterns? Yep.
You use with the table.
Excellent. Yeah, make a table. That's a huge one. Table helps organize it, makes the patterns more accessible. Now, some things I could have done in my table that I didn't, because Kristen saw the pattern so quickly. And that's the other thing. I remember I was working on this math problem for days and days, and I was in the hallway and I was going like this, and somebody walked up to me like they thought something was really wrong. I said, "What's the matter?" I was like, "I'm trying to solve this math problem." They're like, "Oh, what's the problem?" And I told them the problem. And they said, "Oh, did you try this?" It was one of my students. I was like, "No, I didn't try that." And I thought about it. I was like, "Oh my God, that'll work." I went and wrote it down and it worked. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So he just saw something that day that, and I was blinded from for some reason. So we all see different things at different times. When I was looking at this here, I was thinking to get from 2 to 6, I would add 4. To get from 4 to 12, I would add 6. And I wondered, hey, what if I add 8? Would that get me over here? Oh, it does. Oh my gosh, that's a pattern, right? So sometimes patterns can be hidden, and we got to tease them out a little bit by expanding the table a little bit. Let's see, what else did we do to try and solve problems? I drew a picture. Sometimes my sketch is like, it says something about a house, so I draw a house. It gets me started thinking, frees up my brain to think. The pictures aren't necessarily irrelevant or directly helpful, but eventually they might be. I don't know till I try. Draw a picture. What else did we try today? Or maybe something you've tried before. Yeah.
We physically did it.
We physically did it. Yeah, act it out. Get physical. Sometimes people call that making a model. We'll try that in another instance in a minute. Did anybody guess? I guess like crazy, and then see if I can somehow make that guess work. So not only do you want to guess, but you want to check your guess somehow and hope you can find some logical reason that it all fits together. So does anybody remember being in elementary school or high school and they wanted you to do these problem-solving assessments in school and they were going to grade you on it and they wanted to see your work, they wanted you to check your work? You guys all go through that in probably high school, middle school, who knows where. Yeah. And did a teacher ever say, you can't do guess and check? That's not a valid problem-solving strategy. That is such bullshit. It is great, because we have intuition based on stuff we've learned before. And if we can check that guess, it's totally worth trying. Sometimes instead of guess and check, we will call it trial and error. Same idea, same thing. So we can rename it if we want. But it is totally a valid process. If you make repeated random guesses, that might not be helpful, right? So you have to have something going behind the guess. So we don't want randomness, but. So those are like the main problem-solving strategies right there. Tonight for homework, I'd like you to read through section 1.1. They talk about a guy named George Polya who has this 4-step problem-solving strategy that's going to totally change your life. It won't. But it's something to think about. So when you read it, say, huh, do I really solve problems that way or should I? We'll talk more about it next class. But we'll solve some more problems. So we've been working hard for an hour here. Why don't we take like a 5-minute break, get a drink, or just stand up at the very least, because if you've been sitting down too long, you kind of lose focus. So get up, move around, take 5. We'll resume with a workbook activity in a minute and some toys and some graph paper and crayons.
Can I have the Wi-Fi password?
Yes. Which one are you trying to get into? It depends.
There's the NCC guest.
Let's try the password guest. But I do know network.
Okay.
I believe network is education.
Any capitals or?
No, I think it's all lowercase.
Worked.
All right.
Awesome. And my mom, we ordered the book.
Yeah.
We came to the bookstore
Yeah.
and they told her that it would just be online. So she didn't need it.
Oh, they forgot about the workbook.
Yeah,
Okay.
it must have been.
All right.
And yeah, that book, that was the book that she saw on the website, so I don't know.
Yeah, it should have showed the workbook too. Yeah, check again with the bookstore later, and I'll make you some copies for now.
Okay.
So I'll make a few. I think most people don't have it yet.
So we need this right here.
Yeah, this right here. Yeah,
Okay.
and I listed on the main website. If you go to syllabus, where's the syllabus?
And what's the password for Canvas here? Because I know how to get down Easterns.
Yes, so there's 2 ways to get into Canvas. So if I go, let's see, let's bring up a new screen. If you go to the main college website and you go to Wolf Web Canvas, here your student ID and then
Oh,
password,
okay.
like you're gonna go register.
Okay.
And then from there's a link to Canvas.
And then it'll bring you to this class.
And then it'll bring you to this class, yeah. The other way, they don't, they do. If instead you go to staff and click on Canvas, here it's your BMCC student email address followed by your student number. So
Okay.
there's two different ways to get in. They
Okay.
have both slightly different usernames and passwords.
Okay.
And so try one of those before you go. Let's make sure we can get you into that. All right. And I'm gonna make some copies. Ashley, you said you needed some of this too?
Yes.
So,
Having issues with the refund thingy, so getting my books in.
so that's what I want to do today. I want to do number 3 today too. Back.
Oh, really? It's weird. No, well, he went last night, actually. Was his first official night. And yeah, well, is that how he said Yeah, he's 6'5". He's huge. Yeah, I even saw Damon the other day, and I was like, what? No, he's not. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so let's see. This one first.
Oh, really? Oh, God. I saw him driving all day. and I was like,
You got it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic.
Thank you. That's so
Okay, so I don't have activity 1. And then activity 3, we'll get to that. Okay. Let's go to the next one.
so bad.
And jump into these in just a minute. Is anybody here like the person that likes to get ahead? Yeah, okay, so then before you leave today, or anybody else, if you want the other, if you don't have your workbook yet, but you want the other activities we're doing for chapter 1, then before you go, I'll make some copies for you all. But this will be enough to get us started in class today.
So are these due like early response periods?
So usually, and I'll put due dates in Canvas for them when I think they're due. My usual philosophy is we start them one day in class. Likely the next class you're going to have some questions still. So at least by a week later, turn them in. So they usually do a week from when we start them in class. But you can always turn them in earlier. So let's see, I'm going to log back into Canvas. Okay, here's Canvas. Is that coming on? Good. So I'm going to, before we get into this, I just want to go back to the problem we were just working on, show you a couple of spreadsheet tricks, get you thinking about how you can use spreadsheets to solve math, and then we'll start trying to solve the next couple of problems there. So the course website is still going to be evolving because some of the things didn't work the way I hoped this year. The home page is probably going to stay the same as modules. And they'll probably just end up being, instead of, usually I like to do what we're doing each week for modules. I don't think that's going to work given some of the tools we have online. So I'll probably have a course information, an activity section, and then an other stuff kind of section here. There's a daily schedule that's going to keep evolving here. And what I'll put on here is what I intend to do with you each day. So for example, blowing that up a little bit. We did a little introduction, the handshake problem. We're mostly working on section 1.1 in the textbook, and then we're going to start activity 1.1 and activity 1.3, the worksheets. Next class, we'll get started on section 1.2 more thoroughly in the textbook, and we'll work on activities 1.7 and 1.9. And then the following one day a week from today, we'll start section 1.3 in the book and work in class on activity 1.11. As far as when they're due, they'll usually be due about a week later. So if I added some things. So if we look up the current module system here, you'll see I'm guessing that we should be done with activity 1.1 by the 2nd. So I'm hoping that's when you'll have your write-up to me, whether the write-up is submitted online or whether the write-up is handed to me in person. And let's see if I can put the submit button on this one. Student view. This one has a submit button. And so usually the way I set them up is if you're handing me paper, you got nothing to submit, no big whoop, I'll just type a number in there after I grade it. But if you have something to submit, you can just attach. Where's the attach button? Oh, there's an attach button here somewhere. There's a link button. Confusing this with another system. Zoom out. Sorry, I keep forgetting the teacher version works different than the student version. On the teacher version, I have a little files button here where I can upload stuff to go in here. I don't see that here, do you? I see link, I see break the link. I can put an image.
Usually there's like a little box at the bottom and then an attach button next to it, not a whole thing.
Yeah, I don't see that either. Huh. Okay, so we will have to explore how attaching files works. Anybody here use Google Docs or Sheets or anything like that? Okay, then you just share it with me, and you can put the share link here if you want. So I'm going to demo that in a moment. All right, so let's go to Google Docs. When I use Google, the first thing I do before I start, I could just start a new doc or a new sheet right away, but then it just goes into my big clutter of stuff here. What's better is to have a place for it. So for example, I have a folder called Math Classes. In Math Classes, I have 211, and then this needs to be cleaned up clearly. So I might want to make a new folder for activities. And then once I'm in the place I want it to be, then I say, okay, now give me a new spreadsheet, please. So that way it's in the right spot. So it's just a good habit to get into. Otherwise, you have the problem I have sometimes, which is a large folder full of all kinds of stuff. So here I'm going to take a look at the introduction problem and just demonstrate a few spreadsheet tricks. So whenever you're playing with a spreadsheet, now remember, every cell on a spreadsheet, so let me ask this first. Has everyone here used a spreadsheet at least once in their life? Anybody not? Cool. A spreadsheet is a giant calculator. Every single one of these rectangular cells is a place to do a calculation. If I just come to a cell, like here I'm in cell B2, if I just type 2 plus 2, the computer's going to say, hey, nice, you just typed 2 plus 2. What's the trick to get 4 out of that? Yeah, type equals first, then it says, oh, you want the answer to 2 plus 2. So if I go equals 2 plus 2, it says, oh, yeah, 4, duh. But what it recorded is that I typed equals 2 plus 2. Okay? Other things about a spreadsheet. You should never just type a number. You should always state what the number is, at least briefly. So here, I'm interested in people. So we want labels in spreadsheets. And I'm going to do the handshake version, not the introduction version. So handshakes. And so I'm just going to say, hey, what if I have 2 people? I'm just going to come over and type that there's 1 handshake. A little more. Let's see, if there were 3 people, did we figure that one out? 3 people was, how many handshakes? Cut that in half.
Oh,
3, yeah, that'd be 3. I know, now we're cutting it in half. Yeah, it's a little tricky. So there was one, this new person had 2 people to meet, so it jumped to 3. When the 4th people joins the group, how many people does that 4th person have to meet? The previous 3, right? So 3 plus 3 gives me 6. A 5th person walks into the room, and what happens? How many people does that 5th person have to meet? 4. How many handshakes already happened? 6. So wouldn't you agree, I really just have to add up those 2 numbers right there to make it work? Okay. So I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to put in equals. There were 6 handshakes. Once you type equals and you click on something, it says, hey, you just typed on cell B4. Now, here's a surprise quiz question. That right there is either called a relative cell reference or an absolute cell reference. Does anybody remember which one that is, relative or absolute? Relative?
Absolutely.
Try again. Good job. It is a relative restaurant. And what relative means, relative to where I am now, I clicked on 1 cell above. So it's all about relative positioning. The reason that matters is what happens after I copy it. So let me demo. So I want to take that number plus this number here. That's now the purple number. The purple number relative to this spot is up 1, left 2. Agreed? So I am going to copy that down. You can fill patterns in a spreadsheet by giving it something to start with. So 4, 5, what's next? 6. So if I first highlight, let go of the mouse, and then point and click on that bottom button, that fill button, it'll guess I want to go 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. With a formula, once you've typed the formula, you don't have to highlight any other cells. You just fill down that single cell. Now watch what happens when I fill it down. It did say take B4 plus A4. The new one says take B5 plus A5. It changed the numbers. Why did it change the numbers on them? Well, it changed them because I copied it down 1 row. That made all the 4s into 5s. Did it keep the relative idea? Did it take the cell above plus the cell that was up 1, left 1? Yeah, so that's what I mean by a relative cell reference. Although it showed you an A4 and a B4, what the computer was really thinking was up 1 over 1. Grab those 2 cells. I don't care what they're called, just grab those 2 cells. So that when you reuse it, it continues that pattern of relative position. Absolute position is when you always have to use the same number in the sheet. So suppose there was a magic number over here called 7, and I always had to multiply these guys by 7. That means when I copy that, let's take a different group of numbers. Let's slide you over. Oh, shoot, sorry. That went crazy. Let's zoom other way. Control X that out of there. Okay, let's put the 7 here. And let's say over here we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want a formula that takes the 1 and multiplies it by that 7 right there. When I try to fill that down, at first it might look okay, but then some weird stuff starts happening. Because it's no longer, once I fill that down, instead of looking in cell E1, down here it's looking in E2. Down here it's looking in E3. It lost track of that top number. So to say always look in that top row, I would have to modify this formula by putting a $ in front of the 1. Let me blow it up so you can see better. Oops, too far. So this is called absolute cell referencing. And so what happens is the computer's reading through the formula. It says D2. Oh, that what you really mean is the cell to the left. It sees the E, and then it sees the $ and says, ooh, don't touch the 1. Can't touch the 1. So that when I fill it down, it's not going to mess with the 1. So I'll fill it down so you can see the difference. 7, 14, 21, 28. That's more what I was expecting instead of those other crazy numbers. And so if I double click like on this one right here, notice it didn't mess with the 1. The D2 became a D3 and then a D4, but that's always E1 because the $sign's on the 1. So it reads left to right, it sees the $sign, says don't touch what comes next. What if I didn't want to mess with the column letter? What do you think I would do there to make it fixed? Just another $sign. Yeah. So the only reason I put it in front of the 1 is because I was only copying up and down. If I was copying left and right, I might be worried about the E. So you got to decide, do you need $signs in front of the E and the 1, just the E, just the 1? Just kind of depends on what you're doing with the formula. So relative versus absolute, I'll go over that some more on another day too. So spreadsheets are nice because they do calculations. The other thing that's nice, if I whip out my phone and do a calculation, so I can just open up my phone, it has a calculator. I can go up here and say, what is 12 times 11, and then divide by 2 equals 66. Could I have pushed the wrong button accidentally? Yes. I have problems texting. I have problems hitting the right button. If I clear that, is there any evidence of the calculation I just typed? Gone from existence. So another reason I like spreadsheets is if I tell the spreadsheet to do something, it remembers what I told it to do. It's still there, exactly what I told it to do. Whereas the calculator, it loses it each time. Okay. So I highly recommend using a spreadsheet as often as possible. Another reason to try and use a spreadsheet as often as possible, if you go get a job and you say, hey, I'm a whiz with a TI-84, are they going to be impressed? Probably not. But you say, I'm excellent with spreadsheets, is that going to get you a little more clout when you're trying to get a job? Totally. Yeah. So play with them as much as you can. Force yourself to. I will try to force you to on a weekly basis. All right, let's see. Relative, absolute. If you're new to Google, the cool thing about it is you can share stuff. So I can just put someone's email and let them edit it or let them just view it. If you wanted to submit this for homework, you would just get the shareable link, copy, and then paste it in here. And usually I don't paste the link directly. I hide it in front of back and behind some pretty text. And then I paste it in. So then when I go to review your work, I just click my spreadsheet and it'll show me your Google Sheet. Other things about Canvas, when you submit something, if you decide, oh, I want to edit that a little bit, Canvas doesn't let you edit submissions, but it does let you resubmit. So if you got halfway through and you submitted and then you want to submit the other half, you have to start a brand new submission. You can't go edit it. From the grade book, you can see that you made other submissions, and I can see that you made multiple submissions, but I don't know why they don't allow you to edit submissions, they just don't. It's not a big deal. So usually what I do is I look at the latest submission. If that doesn't have everything, I'll look back one. If I'm questioning it, I just go ask you and find out what's going on. But I found that a little quirky about their interface here. All right, ready to do some other math? Yeah. So, grab some blocks. Okay, grab some blocks there. Oh yeah. And once you get your blocks, what I'd like you to do is build me a staircase. Decide you need more blocks, they're right here. I'm going to grab some too. So if everybody could build a staircase, you don't have to use all of your blocks if you grabbed a lot, Ashley. Or if you just grabbed a little, that's cool too. Any kind of staircase you want, and then I'm going to go around and we'll talk about staircases. What's a proper staircase? What isn't? I'm going to be the building inspector. That's part one. Oops. All right, there's step two. Okay, so here's one of mine. Let's see, Tiffany's got one over there. Love one there. Fancy one there. This one close. Okay. So I want to talk about what is and what is not a staircase. So here is one example. I think this is a good, simple staircase. Nicole's is great. It's double wide. We'll get back to that in a minute. Ashley's still developing her staircase. Oh, they're hard to get together. Yeah, order of operations matters. That's still a good staircase. Yours is a nice floating staircase.
Yeah.
That's cool too. Okay, so from what I'm looking for is a simple staircase. I'll modify a little bit. Simple staircase. Okay. So Caleb's wasn't simple because it was kind of floating out. I'm not sure how else to describe it. If you didn't see it, it was wicked cool. Yours is not simple because it's doubled up. But you kind of jumped ahead to my next part. So build a congruent staircase. So for example, here I have a staircase made out of 9 blocks. Here I have another staircase made out of 9 blocks. Are they congruent? Think, what's congruent mean? I'm not sure. Whip out my phone, Google it. Okay, what do you think we're going to find congruent means? Tiffany's all over Googling that. Good job. Siri. Gotta get an Alexa in here. Someday that'll be standard room protocol. Congruent. Remember using it back in high school geometry, maybe? Congruent versus similar. What do you think? Identical in form, the same. Are these identical? They both have 9 blocks, but they're not identical. These are not congruent, even though they both have 9 blocks. So if I want them to be congruent, I could take the 2 off the edge, put them on top. Do they now have the same shape and size? Yeah, now they're not the same color. Let's ignore color for a minute. But now they are congruent. Okay? Now they are congruent. So the activity 1 is about building congruent staircases. Okay? Congruent pairs of stairs. And what they challenge you to do is take some random number of blocks. So my random number is 18, right? Because I have 9 plus 9. Can 18 blocks be built into a pair of congruent staircases? The answer is yeah, they're right here. Okay, how many did you have there? Yeah, so we have 10 and 10. So 20 blocks can be made into 2 congruent staircases. Well, you got a lot here. Do you know how many you have in this stack here? let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's 7 times 4? 28. There are 28 blocks there. 28 plus 28 would be 56, right? Because that would give us 2 congruent. So 56 blocks can be used to make a pair of congruent staircases. So the question ultimately is, what numbers of blocks will make 2 congruent staircases and what numbers won't? Okay. So for example, let's go really simple. Can I use 3 blocks to make 2 congruent staircases? I can make 1 staircase with 3 blocks, right? But I can't make 2. Oh, that gives me an idea. Could 6 blocks be used to make 2 congruent staircases? Yeah, 6 totally works. Would 5 work? Why not? It's an odd number. If they're congruent, right, they have to have 2 the same. It's got to be an even number. So right now, we just cut the problem in half. It's got to be an even number of blocks. That's kind of cool. So everyone take a second to read through page activity 1, just up until that block that says understand the problem. So take a read through the purpose, materials, grouping, getting started, their example, and their question. And then we'll talk about that. And then we're almost out of time for fun today. Someday before I die and stop teaching, we'll have paper that does this. I'm sure of it. Okay. All right, so just so everyone gets to read that first part. So just a note, I've been teaching for 25 years. I've been doing this class for a long time, but I have stage fright on the first day. This is a small group, so it wasn't too bad. But when I'm in public and I have to do stuff, sometimes it's hard to focus. Anybody ever have this problem? Okay. I remember the first time I taught, I thought I would never teach again. It was the worst experience of my life. I'm surprised I'm a teacher today based on that. The other thing is when I'm in public things like this, meetings, somebody says read something, that's pressure. My reading ability drops to half of what it normally is. So if I could read 100 words a minute, I'm now down to 50. So sometimes I don't give you enough time. Say, I need another minute. Don't be afraid, because I'm always needing another minute in meetings. So a couple things to think about. A staircase, in this case, this is a staircase, that is a staircase, that is not. Why not?
There's 2 blocks instead of 1.
Yeah, there's 2 blocks missing from one step to the other. It should be only 1 different. It doesn't have to end at 1 block. Each row going up has to be 1 less block than the previous row. But you can stop anywhere you want. So this is a staircase, that's a staircase. Congruent means identical. Same shape, same size, same number of blocks. So these guys are congruent, I just flipped it. These two are congruent, I made a copy and I flipped it, okay? There's a reason I'm flipping these that hopefully we'll all realize later. Okay? Notice they did that with their example here too. Okay? The ultimate question here, and I don't think they make this clear on this worksheet, is that bold question underneath their example of what is and is not a pair of congruent staircases. It says, what other numbers of squares can be arranged into two congruent staircases in this way? So just playing around, we discovered that 18 works, we discovered that 56 works, we discovered that 20 works. They discovered here that what? How many is here? 18 works. But they show 8 cannot. Let's test that out. Take 8 blocks. So whatever you have on this. So take 8 blocks. Now we need to make congruent staircases, right? So immediately I take the 8 and I cut it in half. Can you make a single staircase out of 4? Is that a staircase? No. So I move a block, I put it here. Is that a staircase? Nope, that's not a staircase either. Is that a staircase? I'm running out of ways to put these 4 blocks together. How about you? Yeah. Can we do it with 8? Nope. So I think maybe we should start making a list of numbers that work and a list of numbers that don't work, and maybe there's a pattern there. Okay. So we found a formula for the handshakes and for the introductions. Does every problem one runs into lead to a formula? No. If it did, most of the world's problems would be solved. And there's many problems out there to be solved. So sometimes there just isn't a formula. There's like a set of rules, some guidelines maybe, or a picture. Okay? So magic pen. Oops. Pen. Works and doesn't. When I'm solving a problem for the first time, I make a great big mess that's hard to decipher. Anybody do their own taxes here? How many tries does it take before you get something you can send in? Quite a few, with a lot of scratch paper in between. Do you send the IRS the scratch paper? They probably wouldn't appreciate that. You'll get audited. So my point with this is we're going to have a lot of scratch paper that's going to help us answer some of these questions. Here, this activity is about introducing us to the art of problem solving, and they're going over Polya's 4-step plan. So on here it says understand the problem is the first step of problem solving. Turn the page. The next step is to make a plan. My plan is to grab some blocks and mess around and hope I can come up with a good works and doesn't work collection. That's my current plan. Might I get a better plan as we go by? Maybe. Then it says carry out the plan. We're carrying out the plan by messing around with blocks. Then look back. Okay. Things I look for when I go back. Do I have a way to check my results? Is there a different way to do it? Okay. Checking just doesn't mean I wrote 2 plus 2. Is that really 4? Should I have added 2 and 2 in the first place? Was that relevant? Okay. So there's a lot to do with checking. And what I find is that 4 steps, it's really a circular process. I read the problem, I write some stuff down. I'm messing around, trying to come up with a plan. As I execute my plan, I find I'm going in the wrong direction. So I backtrack and I start revising the plan. And then I start carrying it out, right? So it's really this cyclical process. All right, so let's see. Did we come up with any numbers that surely do not work to make a pair of congruent staircases? Odd numbers, right? Bang, we just nailed infinitely many numbers with that one. Okay. Odd numbers do not work. We just found another number that doesn't work. What was it?
8.
8. Numbers that do work. Well, randomly, we just kind of came up with some. Like I accidentally stumbled upon, let's see, was it 9 and 9 is 18. Ashley discovered, what, 56. Nicole discovered 20. You discovered 10? So we got 20, we've got 10. What other number? Did we come across any others? 12 works. Okay. So this is, you know, we talk about trial and error. We're in the trial and error stage, but we don't have a, is there a scheme to picking these numbers? We just each grabbed a bunch of blocks and we saw what happened. So I think we need to back up a little bit. So odd numbers definitely don't work. Maybe we should start small and work our way up. So what's the smallest number I can start with?
6.
6. Oh, we don't want to start before 6? How come?
Well, I mean, if you're splitting them in half, you couldn't do an even number less than 6 and make a staircase.
Okay, that's a good one. So 6. So like if I start with 2 blocks, does 1 block make a staircase? Maybe. I mean, there's some houses with just one step. So that one's kind of weird. So we might include 2, we might not. We could leave it in the like indeterminate phase. 4 is a weird one. If you have 4 blocks, you have to split them in half. Does this or that make a staircase? So I think maybe to be a staircase, it does need another level, which means 2 is out and 4 is out. So yeah, 6 is the first number that we can make a pair of congruent staircases with. So I'm going to put 2 and 4 in the not work list. I agree with Nicole now. When solving a problem, a strategy I didn't put up earlier is finding a partner. Because sometimes when I try to talk things out, I wasn't sure about the 4 and the 2, and then I started saying it to you, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's totally right, I see it now. But it wasn't until I started trying to reason through it. All right, so 6, so 2 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work, 6 does. Odd numbers are out, 8, 10 is next, 12. Does 14 work? Let's try it. Okay, so half of 14 is what? 7, so get 7 blocks. Can you make a staircase out of 7 blocks? I think I just accidentally did with 4 and 3. Right, that's a simple staircase. It's got a level. The next row up is 1 less than the row below it. Is there another way to do it besides 4 and 3, I wonder? Don't think so. 4 and 3 is the only way to go. Okay, so 14 works. Let's see, what's next? 12, 14, 16 is next. Okay, half of 16 is 8, so there's 8 blocks. Can you make a staircase out of 8 blocks? That's not a staircase. Oops, nope. That's not. What do you think, Tiffany? I'm not having any luck. Anyone else? I think I failed. Interesting. So, what goes in the doesn't work pile now? 2, 4, 8, 16. Okay, so now we could spend a long time doing this. So I just want to stop here. We'll come back and work on this problem next class. What I'd like you to do between now and then is just kind of read through the questions they ask. There's not enough room for you to answer here because you can't get reasonable answers in that space. You'll have to answer on another piece of paper or a Word document or whatever you like, a Google Doc, notebook, anything. But I would recommend reading them before you start writing all of your answers. So they're just trying to guide us through here. And you'll have some supporting work to go with it. So I doubt anyone will finish all of this to the next class, but you may. So for homework, I'd like you to start reading section 1.1 and take a look at the online homework for section 1.1. Read through this activity and take a stab at answering some of the questions. We still have some more work to do together on this. And I'm going to help out with this. I love this problem. At one point of view of it, it's actually not that hard once you see the pattern. But there's another part of it that is kind of hard, and it takes a bunch of people talking about it to get it to kind of gel, especially based on their last few questions and then looking back. So we'll definitely have to have some group discussion on that. But think about it. Let's jump over to activity 3 for a minute. So activity 3 has 3 parts, and it's more just playing around with problem solving. And the art of problem solving is drawing pictures, making tables, messing around and checking to see if there's a reason you should be right or wrong. So I'm just going to give you some tips on this. We don't have enough time to really do it together, but we'll debrief on it next class. The point here is to use each of the clues they give there to eliminate numbers from the list and see what's left. Okay, so this is kind of like a process of elimination, weeding out anything that can't work and seeing what does work. That's a problem-solving strategy. Anybody ever watch the Sherlock Holmes movies or shows? That's like a classic Sherlock Holmes. Weed out anything that can't possibly be whatever's left has to be the truth. Okay. The next one down is pretty similar. They say, I have a riddle. I'm a positive integer. Okay, so that means like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All of my digits are odd. So I couldn't be like 245 because the 2 of 245 is even. Right? A digit is a number. So for example, this is math to 11. The whole combination of those symbols right there is called a numeral. The individual pieces that make it up are the digits. How many digits do we work with in our number system? 9, almost. One more. 10, 0. Yeah, we forget about 0. We got 1 through 9, and then we have 0, so that we can make bigger numbers. So we have 10 digits we work with. With those 10 digits and the idea of place value, ones, tens, hundreds, we can write down any kind of number in existence. Okay, and we'll talk more about that in chapter 2. So we're supposed to use those clues. There's some more. I am equal to the sum of the cubes of my digits. Whoa, what the heck does that mean? Okay, let's take 211 for example. Actually, that's a bad one. Let's take 135 for example. Would you agree that this has all odd digits? Okay. To look at the sum of the cubes of the digits, you would take 1 and cube it, you would take the 3 and cube it, you would take the 5 and cube it, and you add those up. So that's what number 3 says. What happens if I do that? Let's see, what's 1 cubed? 1. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. And if I add all of that up, what do I get? I get 100, 40, 50, 153? Not 135. So is 135 equal to the sum of its digits? Nope. So this one's out. Oh shit, I think we just solved it. Come back to that later. All right. Next one, Rebecca has baseball cards. So I'm just giving you some tips about these. We're not going to solve them now. I want you to try it for homework, and then we'll talk about it in class. She puts them in piles of 2. She has 1 left over. She puts them in piles of 3 or 4. There's also 1 left over. But when she puts them in piles of 5, there's no cards left over. So we're looking for a number that meets all of those 4 characteristics. If you put them in piles of 2, 3, or 4, there's always 1 left over. If you put them in piles of 5, there's none left over. How many cards could she possibly have that work like that? Okay, so this is another kind of educated guess and check, kind of like this one is over here. Okay, so play around with those, and then we'll talk about possible answers and how you went about accumulating them. Has anyone ever played Sudoku, the number puzzle? Yeah, so this is kind of like Sudoku, where you have ways to put stuff together, and you got to stay within the rules, and there are strategies you can apply to make sure it works out. Is there some error involved in there? Yes, absolutely. I don't know anyone that can play Sudoku and not mess up along the way. Okay. Same thing with this. We're going to mess up. You may come in with, I tried, I couldn't get it, and we'll check with neighbors and see what neighbors did to inspire us. All right, you guys got any questions for me? Moment. Okay. So the site will get cleaned up a little bit more. It'll look a little different by the next time we meet. For now, all you need to worry about is get that ebook and start reading section 1. You're not going to have any book problems from the ebook, but there are problems online. Does that make sense? What I'm saying there? What I mean
Maybe
is,
on Canvas.
yeah. So they're in. Yeah. So the things you need to do. You've got those 2 worksheets. Let's leave that. Leave. So the ebook you get from this link right here. The assignment for the ebook reading is under all assignments here. And oops, I'm in student view, so I can't do that. Try again. So I want you to get started in the homework for 1-1. And these are problems like the book. So just a note on these. Let's see, is it going to show me here? Oh, it used to. I don't see it. They used to tell you what problem in the physical text this is like. And the nice thing about that is when you get stuck here, you can go and look like for a similar problem in the book and in the answer key. But they stopped doing that. Other things you do have here that you can use is to help me solve this and the view an example. What each of those do, the help me solve this basically solves that problem and then gives you a slightly different set of numbers to try the same procedure on. The view an example gives the same problem with a different set of numbers in a side window, and then you can back and try and solve this one. Sometimes those are like, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Other times you're like, what the hell are they doing? In which case, ask my instructor. When you click that, I get a picture of whatever you saw and whatever you typed in the box. And I can either write back to you right away or just come to the next class and try and help you with it. Often the videos are good, and they'll try to link to a similar problem in the textbook. So there's pretty good tools here for getting help. And then each problem you can just redo until you finally get it right with no penalty. So you got the chance to get 100% on all your homework there. All right, any questions now? Got it? Read, try some homework, play with the activities. We'll reconvene on Wednesday. All right, thanks for playing. Oh, and did I give everybody graph paper? The graph paper might be helpful for trying to scribble out some more guesses and checks for the staircase problem, is the main reason I handed that out. Yes, sir.
The password for the book again.
Oh, it is on the main page.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So I just put that in the password?
Yeah.
Code for the ebook.
Okay.
So it'll, oh, no, wait. So there's 2 things that have to happen. First, you have to log into an account here. Once you're into an account, then it'll ask for a code. So have you ever used Pearson before?
No. So I just go here?
Yeah, so you'll go there.
And then I'll make an
Actually, yeah, so if you don't already have an account, you'll make an account.
And then I'll put that code in.
And then after you make an account, then it'll ask for the code.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Could I get a couple of those?
Oh, yeah, more copies. Yeah. Okay. So let's see, 7, 9, 11. So what you want next. If you're bored, 10 people in a canoe is an awesome problem. But we don't have time to do this because it takes up a whole class to do that. If you're bored, like Saturday night, instead of watching a movie, you can do that.
Yeah.
6. Okay, 7. 7, I believe, is a 2-pager. 9 is a 3-pager. Okay, so there's 9. And 11, I think, is a 1-pager.
that E101? Are you sure it said E101? Yes.
Hello, you got class in here soon?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Math 25.
Oh, cool. Is that, who's teaching that one?
It's a distance class.
Oh, so you're connecting maybe with Chica?
We don't know.
Chicha?
E-Shane.
Oh, Betsy Shane, okay. Got it. So hopefully someone's going to show up here soon and get you connected. What time does that start?
5.
5 o'clock? Okay. Save. Switch classes.